So it's Thursday night at about 6:50. I just checked and rechecked the jury hotline hoping for a change, but I do have to report on Friday morning to fulfill my civic duty. So I decided to use this Ink2Go screen capture software to see if I could use it to do the ACT explanations. So if you have your ACT practice test in front of you, what I did is just kind of collate your most requested questions, and it looks like there's a dozen or so of them. So we'll just try to go through some of them together and provide a brief explanation. And if there are others around you that got them correct, maybe they could give you a little more explanation than I can here. So I'm just going to start. We'll go right down the list here, starting with number 2. This one might just have been a case of reading it wrong. There are 3 correct ways to fix this sentence that are offered. So the county cleared this path and paved it with packed gravel so they would have a peaceful place to hike and bike. So it asks which of the following would not be acceptable. I think if you just read it aloud, the only choice that doesn't work is letter J. The county cleared this path paved with packed gravel. So the county cleared this path, comma, paving it with packed gravel. They cleared this path and then paved it, or they cleared the path before paving it. All of those work. So letter J is the one that does not. Number 4, there are several of you who wrote on your little note that we need to study dashes. A dash is used when you want to abruptly change a thought. Quite often, dashes come right before a negative word like no, not, or never. So number 4 says, I ride this trail nearly every day, not on a bike, but on Luigi. So letter G doesn't work because if you use a semicolon after day, there must be a complete sentence after it. So not on a bike but on Luigi is not a complete sentence, so G doesn't work. H, there must be some kind of break here. I ride this trail nearly every day, not on a bike. There must be some kind of break here. Letter J, the semicolon after bike here indicates that whatever comes after it will also be a complete sentence, and that's not the case here. So let me grab my own here. So letter F, as written with the dash, is the best option there, and we will in a couple of weeks be studying dashes. The next one you mentioned, most of you, was number 12. So let's look at what number 12 says. Bicyclists streak past in a blur of color and a cloud of dust. I don't understand their hurry. Okay, so letter F, which is a no change there, would not work because there are 2 complete thoughts, so you must do something here. You have to do something because it's 2 sentences run together. After dust, I don't understand their hurry is the start of a new sentence. Letter G, with that word however is called a conjunctive adverb. So words like however or therefore, you must put a semicolon before the however. Okay, so after dust, there'd have to be a semicolon. If you chose letter J, that would create a comma splice, or putting a comma where you need something stronger. So the best way to fix that there is with letter H, just a period, and start a new sentence. Okay. Then we will scroll down or turn the page to number 16. Number 16. And my screen is going to freeze just a little bit here. Ooh, okay, so number 16, this is a great comma rule sentence. So the rule would say, don't separate short prepositional phrases dealing with dates and times. So there would be no comma after PM. So at 2 p.m. on October 27th, 1904, thousands of New York City residents poured into the streets of Manhattan. So no comma after PM. Then the other rule says when you have a month, day, and year in the middle of a sentence, put a comma after the day and after the year. So after the 27 and after the 1904, when you've got dates in the middle of a sentence, you have to have commas here. Okay, so letter J has an extra comma over here. This one would not work. Let's see, this one would not work because it's not a complete sentence after your choice there. Letter G is going to be the correct answer because it took out the unnecessary comma between the prepositional phrases. It put in the comma after the day and the comma after the year. Because this whole thing is just an introductory phrase to this independent clause here. At 2 p.m. October 27th, 1904, thousands of New York City residents poured into the streets of Manhattan. Okay, then turn the page to number 21. Number 21. And my cursor needs to catch up here. Okay, so number 21 says, as early as 1865, there had been proposals for a New York subway, but that took decades to resolve the many political, financial, and technical challenges. Okay, so the word underlined is that, and it says either no change, substitute with it, those, or delete the underlined portion. So, there have been proposals. Okay, there is no noun that the pronoun that's underlined, number 21, there's no noun that the pronoun that refers to in this sentence. Okay, so what took decades to resolve, but that took decades to resolve? There's no answer to that sentence. So it took decades to resolve the many political, financial, and technical challenges. There had been proposals for a subway, but it took decades. So letter B is going to be the correct answer for number 21. Number 22, right away, another question there that a lot of people asked about. This is another comma rule application. It's called the restrictive or essential information comma. So the sentence says, the engineer William Barclay Parsons accepted responsibility for overseeing this project. William Barclay Parsons is essential to the meaning of this sentence because it said the engineer. It didn't say just an engineer, any old engineer. If leaving his name out of the sentence leaves the reader in doubt, his name must be there. Okay, so the rule says do not put commas around essential information. His name here is essential. It says the engineer. Well, who are you talking about? You're talking about William Barclay Parsons. So it's essential information. Don't put commas around essential information. If you do put a comma before William Barclay and after, you're saying I can lift his name out of the sentence and it means the same thing. But it doesn't. It's essential to the meaning of the sentence. The engineer William Barclay Parsons, not William Jones Johnson, accepted responsibility. So the correct answer for number 22 is letter J. His name is essential to the meaning of the sentence, so don't put commas around it. And again, we'll be studying comma rules, and that essential versus non-essential comma rule is something that we'll be looking at. Okay, then the next questions that came up were number 33, kind of through 37. So if you skip 2 pages forward, and I'll scroll down here, it'll take just a second. So we're into the reading about Diego Rivera, the People's Painter. I think your questions here, maybe it was the passage itself or maybe the subject matter of this one, but I had people ask about really 34, 33, 34, 35, 36, and 37. And so that kind of tells me that this was a passage maybe that was a little more difficult to understand. So let's go. The first one people asked about was number 33. So find sentence 33. His dominant artistic subject in his art was as expansive than his frescoes. Okay, so this first one, number 33, his dominant artistic subject in his art. Don't double up on those possessive pronouns. His is already there, so don't use he or his again. You don't need to. You already have the pronoun in there. So that rules out he was interested and he focused. So just delete this. His dominant artistic subject was as expansive. Okay, that's number 33. Number 34, just continuing here, this is just a simple comparison. You always say as expansive as, or as large as, or as important as. So what's missing here, it's the as and the as. Okay, so that one is going to be number, 34 would be letter H here, as expansive as. Number 35, other people asked about. One of his frescoes depict a progression through time and can be read as timelines from left to right. Okay, one, this is just a subject-verb agreement error. The word one is always singular. So one needs a singular verb. The verb is depict, that's plural. One depicts a progression. Okay, so if you look at the choices, each is going to be singular. Each one depicts. Any one is singular. Any one depicts. So the only option that works here is many. Many is plural. Depict is plural. Many of his frescoes depict a progression. Okay, so number 35 has to be letter B. Number 36. On the right side, after they have moved through history. Okay, so this is not a complete sentence right now. On the right side, after they have moved through history. Okay, so right now it's not a complete sentence. So we need to do something to it because it's a fragment as written. So letter G, that will not work because there is not a complete sentence before the semicolon. So if you say on the right side after they have moved through history, excuse me, that's not a complete sentence there, so that one doesn't work. If you do letter H, on the right side after they move through history, comma, the same workers stand tall. So that is the correct answer here. On the right side, comma, after they've moved through history, comma, the same workers stand tall, radiating strength and confidence. Letter H is the one that's going to work. Letter J, a dash indicates an abrupt change in thought. And really there's no abrupt change in thought here. The sentence just really needs to be completed. So letter H is the one that best completes the sentence there. And then number 37, 37 was another one people asked about. Such empowerment of the worker were to be the bright future Rivera envisioned. So such empowerment. Empowerment is the subject here. Empowerment is a singular noun that then needs a singular verb. So empowerment was the future. Here empowerment were. Okay. If in both B and D, if creates an incomplete thought. Such empowerment of the worker, if it were to be the bright future Rivera envisioned for all the workers of the world, if what? Same with D, such empowerment of the worker, if it was to be the bright future Rivera envisioned. Again, it doesn't complete the thought. So the only one that works there is empowerment was the bright future. So that's letter C for 37. Then the next one was skipping forward to number 52. So go forward a couple of pages, flip forward a couple of pages, 3 pages actually it looks like. 52. Okay, let me take a look here. Okay, I parked my rental car in downtown Fairbanks, and to keep the battery from freezing, I plugged the engine into an electrical outlet in the parking lot so the battery would stay warm. Okay, so 52 says either no change, or located in the downtown area, or so the battery would continue to work, or delete it. All right, so what is underlined so the battery would stay warm is redundant. Okay, the sentence 2 lines above already says to keep the battery from freezing. It's the same thing. The battery would stay warm. Letter G is also redundant because you've already said downtown Fairbanks. All right, and letter H, so the battery would continue to work properly despite the cold weather. You've already talked about how cold it is to keep it from freezing. So the best answer for number 52 is letter J. You don't need this in here. I plugged the engine into an electrical outlet in the parking lot, period. Okay. Number 53, several people asked about. And I think maybe what tripped you up here, again, it's which is not acceptable. So 3 of these do work, but 1 does not work. So it was 20 below that afternoon, and the sky shone with a pale gray light. So you could say the sky was glowing, the sky glowed with a pale gray light, or the sky shined with a pale gray light. But letter D is not a word. It's not. It's a non-standard word. So D is going to be the one that is not acceptable. That might have just been a case of reading it wrong. Okay, number 54, kind of more a rhetorical question. If the writer were to delete the preceding sentence, the essay would lose what? Okay, so the box here at 54 means you're looking at the preceding sentence. Again, it's the sentence about it was 20 below zero that afternoon. The sky shone with a pale gray light. So what are you losing if you leave that sentence out? Okay, so are you losing an indication of the narrator's response to the weather? It's not really giving you an opinion. Are you losing a detailed analysis of why the writer had to plug it in? This sentence doesn't really tell you why specifically it had to be plugged into an electrical outlet. Are you losing unnecessary details that repeat information? There's nothing so far about the temperature or about what the sky looked like, but these are descriptive details that help set the scene of, sorry. Looking at the right one. Yeah, set the scene of the narrator's last meeting. So you would lose, if you would lose those descriptive details if you left this sentence out. If you left out the sentence before 54. So H is going to be the best answer. Sorry, I just had a brain fart there. I lost my place. Okay, then the next question that people asked about was number 64. So go to, I think it's probably the last page of your packet, second to last page, 64. Under 3 stars and many stories, the Orion, the constellation story here. So if we scroll down to number 64. Okay, so this 64 again is a rhetorical question where you really have to read the whole essay to decide what the best answer is here, because it says, given that all these choices are true, which one of them ends the paragraph with the clearest allusion or reference to Orion as the constellation that's described later in the essay? So to be able to answer this one, you need to go read to the end on the last page. The very last paragraph says that Orion is the name Westerners use for these three stars. In Greek mythology, Orion is a mighty hunter, and then you learn about the bow and arrow. So this question 64 asks you, again, given that all the choices are true, all three of these are true, which one of them ends this paragraph with the clearest allusion or reference to Orion as the constellation that's described at the end? Okay, so the only one that really makes a reference to that allusion to Orion, the mythology of Orion, is letter H. Orion, who plays a dramatic role in a myth that has been told and retold for centuries. Okay. So I think that covers the ones that most of you asked about. So if there are others that you have questions about that you maybe put on your sticky note, and there are a lot of others, I just, for time's sake, chose the ones that had 2, 3, or 4 requests to go over them. So if there are others that you missed and that you need clarification on, maybe talk to your elbow partner, see if they got that one right. So just what I would ask you here is to please leave these in your career folder. When we come back on Tuesday, I will have that chart I talked about that will track your progress through each of the practice tests, the real tests, kind of track your progress on the ACT and on the whole official full-length test as well. So tuck those back into your folder, and if this video is done and you still have a little bit of class time left, just visit quietly and have a great afternoon. Happy homecoming.